69 through 80. So if you want to pause the video and study as well, because my iPad and the Mevo wasn't working quite right whenever I first turned it on this morning. So if you want to study for about 5 minutes, because that's what they've been studying for, you're going to go ahead and pause the video if you want to. But we're going to go ahead and do our homework check. Number 1, who seized the British post at Kaskaskia and Cahokia and the Vizines in 1778? Lots of Indian terms. Alright, Ethan.
Clark seized the British post of Kaskaskia and Cahokia.
Okay, one more time.
Clark
Good
seized
job.
the British post of Kaskaskia and Cahokia.
Yep, that's it. And the Vizines. Number 2, what 3 American commanders led the war in the South? Chris.
Commanders were John Jones, John Barry, and Bohame Richard.
Bohan Richard. Okay, those are the Navy people. So it's asking specifically who led the, who were like the generals of the South. So John Paul Jones, Bohan Richard, that's his ship, and then the other guy sounded like a naval officer as well. Okay,
Francis Marion,
that's it.
Thomas
Sumter.
and Nathaniel Greene.
Good job. Number 3, what battle stopped the British invasion of North Carolina? Alright, Brecken.
The Battle of Kings Mountain.
That is it. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. And then number 4, we'll just loop around still. Who is the British commander at Yorktown? Chris.
Comte de Grasse was commander.
Okay, that was a general, but that wasn't the commander at Yorktown. Alright, Ethan.
Cornwallis was
Lord.
the general at Yorktown.
Yep, the Lord Cornwallis. And then number 5, where? Oh, I just number 4. I almost read it again. Name the victory that secured American independence. Joseph.
Battle of Yorktown.
Good job. And then what was the treaty that ended? What treaty recognized the 13 former colonies as free, sovereign, independent states and ended basically the war for independence? Chris.
Treaty of Paris.
Treaty of Paris. You know which ones? We have 2 treaties of Paris. There's one reason why you have to know the dates of them, because there's 2 of them.
1783.
Good job, 1783. So to make a note for these, I know it's not like really part of the name, but there's like 70 different treaties of Paris.
So if you say Treaty of Paris on the quiz, you won't get it right.
Yeah,
Half.
because
But of,
I might actually give you half, just because when you understood, but you gotta know which one it is, because there's multiple ones. And in particular, on this test, there are 2 Treaty of Parises, so you have to tell me which one you're referring to. Because one of them ended the French and Indian War, one of them ended the War for Independence. So I gotta know which one you're talking
This is
about.
still
That's
accurate. Are
what
we
it
doing
says.
another chapter before the test?
No, this is it. So
We're just gonna review for like a week and a half.
no, we're gonna review Monday and we're taking it Tuesday.
Okay, I
Yeah.
know.
Alright.
like I knew that.
I definitely knew that was going on. I don't know what we're talking about.
We didn't finish it.
No, I thought we finished it
I know we
too.
did it for homework.
I mean, like, you read it for
Yeah.
homework
Oh.
and then done. And so, you probably realize when you read it, oh, that was the last chapter, like, the chapter, but then you might not realize, oh, this is the 3rd chapter we've done. So,
I got 2.
cheating. Pick one.
Cheater!
Alright, we'll start, I think I started with Brecken last time, so we'll start with Chris, and we'll loop around that way for it. Alright, I know I started. Alright, so, what battle started the war for independence? Technically, we
Close my
moved-
book.
No,
Yeah,
it's good.
Lexington.
Lexington and Concord, they moved them together basically.
Hello.
So Lexington and Concord, because they happen on about this, could happen on the same day. Alright, roll your dice. Alright, what is the year for the battle of Lexington and Concord? We'll split it up a little bit, make it a little bit easier.
Wait, what?
What's the year for the battle of Lexington and Concord? So start for the war for independence.
April 19, 1775.
Okay, just need the year, but that works. So April 19, 1775. Alright, who was the Patriot general that captured Fort Ticonderoga?
I'm gonna start with.
I was last minute today.
Oh, Ethan Allen.
Ethan Allen. No, keep in mind on the quiz, if this is a possible quiz question, you can't be looking at certain
I
people.
only remember that
Why
because
are you mad?
What if
Aren't you right?
So do you want to get anyone don't?
You don't get it because remember his last name. Last name is Jenkins. You're an Ethan Jenkins, I'll draw a smiley face if it's wrong.
Oh.
Alright,
Okay.
what is the year for the First Continental Congress?
oh, 17 something, right?
It is 17 something. 1770, I'll help you out.
Wait.
So,
No.
1775.
What was it?
75.
Nope.
74.
74. 1774. First Continental Congress. Write down something you remember.
17.
I know, lots of stuff happened very quickly in this era. Alright, what
Fourth
year
row.
is the what year is the Second Continental Congress?
1778.
No,
What did he say for the first one?
1774.
The second one?
Yep.
76.
Nope.
75.
75. So the fifth year. Okay.
Why did I write it on 4?
No. First Continental Congress, 1774.
Okay.
Hey.
Second Continental Congress, 1775. Literally the next year. 1775 is also whenever the War for Independence begins. That's Lexington and Concord.
April 19th.
Yes.
Alright, no.
Who becomes Commander-in-Chief of our Army? It's just the next question.
What is his name? Start with G?
Last name is W.
George Washington.
Yeah.
Washington, George.
I got 2 A's in a row. That's all.
Yay.
That's
Yeah.
alright.
Alright, where were the Hessians from?
They say that has German.
Good job. I'm sorry.
That's a
That's
good old 0.
Alright, who wrote Common Sense?
What's her?
His last name begins with a P. You'll get it really quick. Good job, that's the guy go.
Pain.
Good job, Thomas Paine.
Whoa.
Thomas Paine. Alright, what's the year for the ratifying of the Declaration of Independence? Or like accepting it. What's the year?
Is it 17?
Yep, 1770.
For the war? Or the
Signing Declaration of Independence.
3? It's not
If the war starts in 1775,
I'm actually English.
good job, 1776. What's the full date for the signing of the Declaration of Independence?
Me?
Yeah,
July 4th, 1776.
good job. Make sure we got all of it. Right, who wrote Commentaries on the Laws of England?
Did we already do, when did the war start?
Yep, Lexington and Concord.
Yeah, I know
Let's
that.
start.
Like, did we say what the date was?
Yeah,
April 19th.
April 19th.
What's it start with?
17.
Yeah, it's Lexington and Concord. That's where the war officially starts. Shot around the world. Alright, who wrote Commentaries on the Laws of England? He also believed the law of nature that it should match the Bible.
What's the start with?
B. You asked me about this guy.
Oh yeah, Blackstone.
William Blackstone. Who led the committee in writing the Declaration of Independence? And what's his name? His last name begins with J.
Jefferson.
Thomas Jefferson. Alright, there are basically 4 advantages that the Patriots had during the War for Independence. Name, we'll say 2 today.
the layout of the land.
Okay, strategic.
And, I don't know, France.
What?
Well,
Okay,
the land.
foreign aid, I'll take it. Foreign aid, it was also popular support and experienced military leaders. Roll your dice. Alright, what were Patriot disadvantages? There was only 2, so name one of the 2.
Lack of unity?
What?
Lack of unity?
Yep, lack of unity. Well, I guess 3 because we had lack of unity.
Financial.
Remember any of the others just for fun?
We didn't have a lot of money.
Yep, finance problems, and then
What is the other one start with? Less men?
What?
Was it less men?
Uh,
Less manpower?
yeah. Well, people make a come and go basically. So Washington had to basically ask them to stay, please stay. So maintaining the army. Roll your dice.
You can't do that now, can you?
You could.
You get dishonorably discharged.
Yeah, it depending on what it is. Some people they volunteer for the army today, but once you volunteer, you can't really just decide, I'm gonna just go home now.
Oh.
Cause
No,
then you could get
right now.
Cause then you could get time in military
We
jail.
gotta keep going. Alright, so who was the person that was superintendent of finance in Huntsville, loan from France?
Robert Morris.
Robert Morris, good job. Who was the Polish Jew that also held up the finances, but he was also a spy?
This is the one who escaped.
Yes, he lived.
His last name starts with an S.
It does.
Smith.
Think Jews.
Smith.
Auschwitz.
Stop talking about
Right.
Mr. Smith.
Start with an S.
Starts with an S, gotta go.
I don't know.
Alright.
It's the same.
Slimeth?
Nope. Okay, y'all said that yesterday, it's still wrong.
James Solomon.
Haim Solomon. Solomon. No, Solomon.
What?
Alright, who was our most valuable ally during the War for Independence? What country? France. Alright, who was the guy? He was a spy. He described himself as a Dutch schoolmaster, but he ended up getting caught and dying. But he said, I only regret that I had one life to lose for my country.
Let's start with
His last name begins with an H.
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 Ooh.
say, since I don't even have hairs.
That's a good guess, but no.
Hydro.
I did not quite close enough.
Nathan Hale.
Nathan Hale. Alright, what was the town that George Washington attacked on Christmas night, captured the 1,000 Hessians, but also valuable supplies? Starts with T.
Taganoa.
Nope.
Wait, what?
What was the town that George Washington snuck back across the Delaware River, attacked on Christmas night,
Oh,
captured
yeah.
1,000 Hessians and valuable supplies? It's one of the first times we actually won.
I don't remember. I remember talking about
You
it.
start with the T.
Start with T.
Trin.
Trenton, Battle of Trenton.
Sorry.
Trenton. Right
I
on.
knew that.
Oh, baby, at 8.
I was joking.
Alright, who was the guy that agreed to surrender West Point in exchange for money? He was a traitor.
What start with?
His lesson begins with A.
Oh, I know this.
Andrews?
Not
No,
you're thinking Edmund Andros.
Not Andrews, but Arnold.
That's a big jump. You're going to Arnold?
Yeah.
You know, that's it. Benedict Arnold. That was a big jump from Andros to Arnold. I'm impressed. Alright, let's see. Who surrendered? Okay. Who was the Patriot leader at the Battle of Saratoga? So he won.
What's it start with?
G.
Gage.
That is extremely close. If someone else gets close, I have to give it to them, but that's almost it.
What?
I'm not telling her what. I'm not telling you what she said.
No, I don't care. What's the question?
Who was the Patriot leader that won at the Battle of Saratoga? If no one gets it, I'm giving it
I
up.
thought it was what she said.
Okay?
Was I sure?
G.
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 Isn't it like, Grenville?
Nope. Remember Ethan?
The battle, the general who won at the battle of Saratoga?
Mm-hmm.
Green?
Was the green?
Green.
Nope. Alright, you guys are closer. Gates. Horatio
Gates.
That
I
is
knew it
not-
wasn't green.
Gates.
That is my mom's last name.
Yeah, that was close.
I'm sorry.
Is that the only reason why you remember it?
Alright, what battle was the
Yes.
turning point in the War for Independence? This showed France in particular that we might actually win this thing.
What was the last one though? I don't even write it
Gates.
down.
Horatio Gates. What battle was the turning point?
Nelson.
Who's that?
Can you give me like what it's talking about?
Horatio Gates won this
No.
battle.
Is it that?
Battle of Horatio.
Can I spell it for him?
It's Battle of, and it starts with S. I can't do spelling, it'll take way too long if we start doing that for all.
Can I just tell my answer?
No, we're not to you yet.
Oh, is this a question?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay,
Saratoga.
Battle of Saratoga.
Oh,
Saratoga.
I thought he was just asking what the city was.
No, this is my next question. Alright, Ethan's turn. Where did Washington spend the winter whenever he lost Philadelphia?
Valley Forge.
Yep, miserable winter. Horrible winter.
8!
Alright. Started with Brecken, so I gotta do one more question for Genesis. And then that should be it. Alright. Let's go back a little bit.
Oh, wonderful.
Name one of the 3 writers. I just picked this before I realized.
Paul Revere.
Okay, yes. So William Dawes, Paul Revere, Samuel Prescott. Alright, who has 30 or more? We made a couple rounds.
I got 43.
49.
You did not. There's no way.
Anyone have more than 49?
There is no way.
There's no way. He didn't answer as many questions as
You
me.
must have rolled more.
Did I not?
How many A's did you get?
Alright, we gotta go.
20.
Alright.
I had 4.
Two pieces
Four
of
up,
paper.
kid. Screw
Alright,
it.
Chris, we can't play this game, so I'm gonna get like this. Okay, 2 pieces of paper, we gotta go. 2 pieces of paper, label 1 through 10.
The Lord
It's
knows.
okay.
2 pieces or
2. What's a piece of paper?
Wait, yeah.
Technically the jar spread out hard, so you only have 1.
I forget every time I win it.
It's habit to say 2.
Wait, was this 1?
Yeah, you got jar so far apart.
Oh, I thought
I
say,
can
why
see all the way
don't
over there.
you 2? No. That hurt.
I can't even read something right there. That's stupid.
I wear glasses.
Can I show, recognition?
Which quiz is this?
This is, I believe, quiz
9.
9. I think this is 9.
The last one I took was 8. I don't remember that.
This will make up for the bad grade I made on my birthday.
No,
Will
no.
it?
Maybe.
She knows I made a bad grade.
September?
Alright, number 1.
Wait, what, quiz 9?
Quiz 9. Question number 1. What battle, or battles, officially started the War for Independence?
Do them both.
You can name them both because technically they both happen on the same day. What battles started the War for Independence?
Is it a bonus to be in both of them?
Nope.
Come on, bro.
Number 2. Okay, I'll be lenient for this one, but if you give me the full date, I'll give it as a bonus. So I only need the year for the start of the War for Independence, but if you want to give me the full date for it, I'll take it. So full date if you want the bonus for it.
Thanks.
Number 3. Who captured the British stronghold Fort Ticonderoga? Don't look at people. Who captured the British stronghold Fort Ticonderoga? Number 4. Okay, this one's a year. What year is the Second Continental Congress? Second Continental Congress. Number 5. Alright, this one we can't do multiple bonuses, but I do need the year for the signing of the Declaration of the Independence. So if you want to write the full date just for fun, because we can't do multiple bonuses. If you want to write it for fun just to show off, you can, but I just need the year.
Alright, I'm so off.
If you want to show off, that's fine, but I need the year for the signing of the Declaration of Independence. Number 6. Who wrote commentaries on the laws of England, talking about the law of nature and how it should match up with biblical principles? Who wrote commentaries on the laws of England?
What's that first name?
Remember its last name. Always, if you don't remember first name, it's just 1 point off. You gotta give me the last name. You have to have it. So try to mingle it out as best you can. Alright, number 7. Name 1. There are 4. This should be really easy. Patriot advantages that we had during the War for Independence. Pick the one that you know you can spell correctly and just spit that out. So there are 4 advantages that we have for it. So name 1. And don't care which one you pick, pick one. Number 8. Which country proved to be America's most valuable ally during the War for Independence? Which country proved to be America's most valuable ally? Number 9. Who was appointed the Superintendent of Finance? He also helped us get a much needed loan. Who was appointed the Superintendent of Finance, and he helped us get a much needed loan. Number 10. Who was the spy, young spy? He dressed up as a Dutch school teacher, schoolmaster. He did get caught though, and he was hanged. So your book left off his important quote, but he said, "I only regret that I have but one life to lose my country." But this one ended up dying, so it's not the new one. So it's the other guy that dies. So who was the young man? He disguised as a British school teacher to be a spy. He ends up getting caught though and dying. He was hanged. Okay. Anyone need any of it
Can I get the
repeated?
first letter of number 9?
Which one?
First letter of number 9.
No, I can't do that. Just gotta guess. Just best you can. Try to get the bonus. Hopefully help you out.
And number 10, you said it wasn't.
It was not, because there's 2 spies, and well, I guess there's more than 2, but in this chapter there's focusing on 2 spies. One of them lives, the other one dies. This is the dead, well, they're both dead now, but this is the one that dies and was hanged. And he got caught, and he ended up not escaping, and he died. I cannot hear you.
Did he have a famous quote?
Yeah, he said, I only regret that I have but one life to lose for my country. How that helps you out at all. Alright, I'll go ahead and collect this and hand it to me as you go by, and then turn in your textbook. I believe we're around page 85. I forgot to look at our one by one.
We only have 2 pages.
So we left off on page 82, and I'm gonna come get my dice now too as well.
I don't know where it went.
Look up this guy's
It's
name.
blending in.
And describe.
Yeah, remember, we can't talk talk about the quiz right now because Jamie and Quentin may not have taken it yet, so because of that, you can ask me later if you have a question about something for it. Alright, so we've been talking about the War for Independence and what's happening in the War for Independence. We made it pretty far. We finished up most of Valley Forge yesterday on 81. Your book has that thought provoker though at the top of the page, and that one's kind of interesting, so I like that one. In what ways are America's modern leaders different or similar to those of this period? Thinking about George Washington. Now, I know it's George Washington. So because of that, make sure in your comments that you are appropriate about our current leaders. I know there's all different types of opinions of this time period. So just make sure that I'm sure you think they're okay. What are some areas and that they're similar or different? Now make sure that you do frame them in an appropriate manner because you don't want to be disrespectful to any particular party. Okay.
FBI is always listening.
Okay.
Back then they were puppets.
Okay, you can think of it that way. So, what would be some ways that George Washington was a good president?
He would actually go out and fight for his country.
Yeah, which
He
he
wouldn't
did as
just
well.
sit and off. Never mind, I'm not gonna put it.
Okay, good job. Way to remember and try to fix it. But yeah, you're right that basically he went out into combat. Now keep in mind, our presidents aren't really supposed to go into war today.
But
Why?
he wasn't really president at the time, was he?
Yeah, no, he wasn't at the time. But again, your book's talking about leaders, so it's one of those. So he was a general at the time. Right now, he becomes president. We've actually only had one president that
Yeah.
actually goes out into combat during his presidency. But it's encouraged today where most people say, please don't do that because if you get killed, it creates a major hassle for us on top of it being in a
We
war.
don't care
so
about it,
it's
he just
one.
creates a hassle.
And so yeah, it's one of those. It's one of those when you're a leader, and we don't want to have to go through the process of replacing you right now. So please don't go into combat. It's not good right now. So, but again, he was a good leader that ended up. He suffered, particularly at Valley Forge. He said, "I'm going to suffer with my troops." All right. Anyone else have any things of some ways that it's similar or different in this time period compared to today? Now, some of the ways that they're similar in this time period, in a lot of cases the president will go to places that are hard hit in areas like by a natural disaster or other than that. They'll go typically the next day to go kind of encourage the people and try to help them out and to see the damage. I remember with Hurricane Katrina, President Bush at the time, he came out to come see like New Orleans, to see like, what's happening and what's going on and to see the extent of the damage. So in a lot of cases the president will go there to try to help show his support of, I know you're going through something really hard and really difficult, even though it's not his area because he's supposed to help represent the people, he'll go to go help out in that area for it. Okay.
They didn't have political parties back when George Washington was president.
They did not. He actually didn't want us to form parties, but directly after his presidency, he had parties form up. But it was like he said, he advised not to do that. George Washington gave several major pieces of advice, and throughout history, we've ignored one, and then we've ignored the others, and then we've ignored everything. So he gave basically, if I remember correctly, we'll talk about this at the end of his presidency, he gives basically 3 advices of don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. And we end up doing all 3 eventually.
Isn't it one of them don't replace God or don't shy away from God or something?
He does. He encouraged people to stay close to God on a regular basis. But he said, he basically said, don't form up political parties. Don't make entangling alliances is the major one, which we also ignored as well for it. And so, again, we'll talk about those later on. But again, George Washington understood a lot of biblical principles and a lot of just common sense of do these things and don't do these. But yeah, no, so there are several ways that America's leaders are different or similar to those of this time period. Alright, so moving on from that. Alright, Patriot victories bring independence. So talking about Battle of Saratoga, what country officially joined as our ally after the Battle of Saratoga? France. So your book also points out Spain and Holland also joined forces again against Great Britain as well, mainly because they don't like Great Britain, and so they're now joining up with us. But France was our major ally, so they're helping, but not nearly as much for it. At this point, the British realized we take it back. You know what? You can have your own parliament. It's fine. You can have whatever you want. We just don't want you to leave anymore. But at this point, the colony said, "Oh no. You have killed our people, you've sent foreign Hessians under our soil to fight against us, we've shed blood over this, it's too late, we're going to become independent at this point." So Britain tried to make amends, but it was too little too late by this point in history. So, your book points out the British abandoned Philadelphia, so there comes a point whenever the British have to decide, okay, cutting up the colonies into half like they wanted to isn't working. So do make a note that Sir Henry Clinton, he replaced Howe as the commander-in-chief of the British forces in America. He decides that it'd be easier to try to go up to just New York and wait there for it. So he decides that I'm going to leave Philadelphia and head up to New York to try to divide the colonies in half one last time. There comes a point though, once he gets up there though, because Washington, he tried to defeat them and stop them at the Battle of Monmouth, but he makes it to New York City, but then Washington basically just lays siege to the city and just waits him out for like the next 3 years. Just a long time. That's like how your books are focusing on other generals, because Washington is up in New York City, basically just waiting for Sir Hillary Clinton to take his army out. So Washington was smart in keeping them in one area, so that way he can't leave that section. The Battle of Monmouth is about right up here. You can't really see it on this map very well. Your book has a picture of it, I believe, on the next page of where it's at on the map, but on this particular map, they don't show it very well, so it's about right up in here in this section, but it's hard to see. It's just high, so high up on this one. Alright, so fighting on the front here, so this is more of out west. Now again, it's not like Kansas, like how we think of the west today. The west for them is on like Kentucky, in that area for them. So George Rogers Clark, making it of him, he sees the British boats at Kaskaskia and Cahokia in present-day Illinois. He also captured Vincennes as well. Those are Indian names. The first one, that's one they're a little bit weirder. And he ended up losing it to the British, but then he also recaptured it as well for it. He wanted to capture Detroit, but he never quite could get that one. But he did capture Kaskaskia and Cahokia. Alright, so make a note for him, so George Rogers Clark. Alright, your book talks about Joseph Brant really quick. I'm on page 80 and 2. He was a Native American. Now, of course, they had Native American names, but they took English names because it was easier to deal with the English if they took English names. Alright, who wants to read first? There's several readings, at least from this section.
Which one are we reading?
82 first.
82. Which one?
Joseph Brant.
Okay, I'll read it.
Okay,
Is it, I read the whole thing?
sure.
One of the Native American leaders who helped the British in the war for independence was Joseph Brant, a Mohawk chief, educated and converted at a Christian academy in Connecticut. Brant became a missionary to his own people. He fought for the British in the French and Indian War. When the war for independence broke out, he served as a British officer. However, after the war, he discouraged further bloodshed between Native American colonists and helped U.S. officials secure peace with the tribes. He also returned to missionary work, assisting in translating the Episcopal
I know it's hard.
prayer book and the Gospel of Mark to the Mohawk language.
You're done. Now, you might think, wait a minute, this guy's a Christian, and he fought for the British. Keep in mind that some people just felt like that the British were right. So even though he was a Christian, doesn't mean they automatically sided with the Patriots. Sometimes people just kind of assume that, but it's not like he's a bad guy for fighting for the British. He just thought that the British were right in this instance, and that's why he stayed and he fought for their side. After the war, he said, okay, I lost. That's it. It's over. I'm going to go back to being a missionary and try to prevent bloodshed anymore for it. So he understood. Okay, we fought about this. I lost. I'm not going to keep instigating trouble for it. So take a note for Joseph Brant. That he fought for the British, but he was also a Christian and went back to missionary work as well. All right, fighting on the high seas. So there are two major privateers in this section. So make a note of a privateer. Kind of like a pirate is kind of the closest thing we have to it in this time period. So it's a private vessel commissioned by Congress or the states. We didn't have an official navy, so we had to hire people to go be our navy. That was the idea. So basically, go attack the British. Thank you, because we don't have an official navy yet. So privateers are private vessels commissioned by Congress or the states. So the best known naval heroes of the War for Independence were John Paul Jones of Scotland and John Barry. Make a note of both of them. John Paul Jones. He had the Bonhomme Richard. So that is the French name of Benjamin Franklin's book Poor Richard, in regards to Benjamin Franklin's book Poor Richard's Almanac. So make a note for him and his boat. So Bonhomme Richard. He ended up capturing the Serapis. That is the name of the British ship. I know, Serapis. That's the British ship, and that's what they named it. So again, I know it means something a little bit different today, but that's the name for it. So make sure you're being appropriate.
I'm trying.
Make sure you're being appropriate for it. So it's just the name of the boat at the time period.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I had to look up pronunciation for it to make sure. So yeah, Serapis, that's the name for it. So just make sure that you're being appropriate.
I got you.
Yes. Alright, so he's the famous naval hero that said, I have not yet begun to fight. Whenever the captain of the British ship told him to surrender, that's whenever, and he resorted with, I have not begun to fight. I have not even, actually, John Paul Jones lived for this one. And so, but he was just saying, I haven't even started to fight yet, I'm going. Okay, what, the question? Wait, raise your hand. What? Yeah, and he ended up winning. Alright, so just make it out. So John Paul Jones, native of Scotland. He had the ship, the Bonhomme Richard, and he's known for saying, I have not yet begun to fight. So make a note for him. Alright, so fighting in the south, the British said, okay, I am stuck in New York City, and so that's when they said, okay, we're gonna try something a little bit different. So Sir Henry Clinton, he's stuck in New York, and so the other generals decided, okay, we're gonna concentrate in the South. There were a lot of loyalists in the South. Remember, what is a loyalist? Genesis.
Someone who's loyal to Britain.
Yeah, so they said, okay, these are people, they'll be more loyal to us. So we're gonna go down there. Now remember, what's a lot of the major religions of the South as well during this time period?
Angelican.
Yep, so Anglican. And so because of that, they said, okay, this is closer to us, so we're gonna go down there. Now keep in mind, do you think the Southerners like having the British in their territory and fighting in their territory? No. So a lot of the Southerners actually switched sides once the British got down there. They realized, no, we don't want you fighting on down here. We're going to do agriculture. We can't have you marching through our areas, and we can't have you destroying our crops. No, go somewhere else. So they started making life as miserable as possible for them. The British did end up taking several cities like Savannah, and then like Charleston. Once they started to give in here, though, this is whenever the Southerners decided, we're going to make you absolutely miserable for it. So they gave them wrong directions, they refused to help them, they tricked them, they would send them going wandering into like the swamps and give them wrong directions on purpose, just trying to make them as miserable and just wear them down as much as possible. Your book has 2 on this page, and then there's 1 on the next page that are known for fighting down here in the South for our generals. Because remember, George Washington has Sir Henry Clinton trapped in New York City. So Francis Marion, he was nicknamed the Swamp Fox because he was known for attacking and then escaping into the swamps of the South. Thomas Sumter, he was known as the Gamecock or the Fighting Gamecock. Gamecock refers to a rooster, so again, remember, be appropriate in this time period. So again, they were just just attacking and then basically pulling back and just withdrawing. They never really won an official battle in this time period, in this section. They did win later on, but basically just to annoy and just to distract the British and draw them away as much as possible. They did stop the British at the invasion, at the Battle of King's Mountain. So your book has several battles up in here. This is the Battle of King's Mountain, so that's the major one for it. Now, Nathaniel Greene, he was the major person that won for that one, that kind of helps wear out the British. So, make it up for him, Nathaniel Greene, he was known as the Fighting Quaker, because remember, since he was a Quaker person, why was he different being a general and being a Quaker at the same time? Because remember, we talked about them.
Quakers didn't fight.
Yeah, they were pacifists. So he was known as the Fighting Quaker because, you're a Quaker, but you believe in combat and fighting? Oh, that's interesting. And so that's why he was known as the Fighting Quaker, because he helped to lead the South and help defend it. So just kind of different. He still had a lot of the same Quaker beliefs, but he understood, okay, this is important enough. Yes, we're going to have fighting for this one. So except for at the Battle of Cowpens, this is whenever the Americans also defeated them. Most of the battles were lost, but he was smart because he basically lured the British farther and farther and farther into American territory. But why is it bad for the British to get farther and farther away from their supply lines? Chris?
They run out of supplies and they'll be weak.
Yeah, so he basically just kept luring them farther and farther away until eventually the British said, we can't do this anymore. We're too far away, we're exhausted, we keep chasing these people and we can't catch them. So eventually he has to go back for it. The Patriots, they had, by this point in 1781, the Patriots had taken most of the South except for Savannah, Charleston, and Wilmington. But they basically won by just leading them and just wearing them down. We didn't win a lot of the major battles of this era. Battles, I'm trying to talk fast and I'm watching the time. So we didn't win a lot of the battles of this era, but again, they won by strategy and basically just harassing the British and drawing them out as much as possible for it. Alright, anyone have any questions about the Southern people or the battles of the South or the generals? So we're going to make a note of their names and their nicknames. Alright, final victory at Yorktown. So, getting over here, now remember, this is not New York City, but that was one reason as to how come the Sir Henry Clinton being trapped at New York City was so important, was because they had to abandon the idea of trying to divide the colonies. He was trapped for so long. That's how come they started to invade the South instead. So, after several encounters with the Patriot forces, Cornwallis decided, okay, I'm going to try to go to Yorktown instead. Because it was a peninsula, he decided that would be a strategic point to get there and to wait for supplies, hopefully, to come in for it. And so he decided he would wait there to try to have people come in, hopefully, and bring them back up. George Washington, he decided, okay, we're going to have a surprise surprise attack on Cornwallis. Now I remember George Washington was up by New York City, but he said, okay, I think I can make it down there and catch Cornwallis instead. So, because of that, he went down there, and then also he had several help as well. So, Comte de Grasse, make a note. I know it looks like Degrassi, but de Grasse, make a note of him well. He sailed up to Virginia and blocked the entrance into Chesapeake Bay. And French troops underneath Comte de Rochard, make a note for him as well. They marched south from New York and laid siege to Yorktown as well. So you have basically 3 different groups coming down. Washington and Rochambeau. You have the British squadron that was trying to come up, but de Grasse, he made it there first. And so Cornwallis, he basically gets trapped there. And so that's whenever, this is basically the official end for it. Now, the War for Independence is not over yet. If you look at the dates for the War for Independence, you'll notice that it's not over officially yet. But once you have Cornwallis surrender at Yorktown, that's whenever this is basically the main parts of it are over at this point. So 1781, that's the date that you need to know for the surrender at Yorktown. So that is the date for the surrender. And this whenever it's basically over. So Cornwallis, he did not officially surrender to George Washington. He said he was sick, so he sent his second in command to go surrender to Washington. Well, Washington said, well, fine, my second in command will accept your surrender. Now it seems like it's being petty. That was because traditionally at the time period, a general would surrender only to another general. So it was being petty or insulting to send your aid. So Washington said, no, you're gonna send me your aid. My aid will accept your surrender instead. So again, it feels like they're just being petty, but it's the idea of that was tradition. So Washington saying, no, I'm not gonna lower myself because you sent your person. My person will accept it instead. So again, just making a note for that. That's the official end for, well, not unofficial, this is the practical end for it. So the Battle of Yorktown, that's whenever that the war was basically over. So 1781, America's independence was virtually won at Yorktown. Make a note of that. Lord North resigned at this point because he knew as the prime minister, my war is over and I basically lost it. So he basically quits as the prime minister, and a new ministry or a new government, as a new prime minister starts from there. Alright, so the Treaty of Paris. So the Treaty of Paris signed in 1783. So you'll notice, okay, here's whenever the war is won at Yorktown. Here's whenever the treaty is signed, so that's the official end for it. So the war still goes on for another 2 years, but there's only skirmishes pretty much after that. So there are several things that people got from it. So one of the major ones you'll notice is on the next page, because the map's on the next page is kind of inconvenient, but that's okay. One of the major things was we got our independence, which is what we wanted as the United States, or we weren't even the United States yet. We were just saying that we wanted to be free, sovereign, independent states. It went as far north as Canada, and as far west as the Mississippi River, and as far south as Florida. Some of you asked me last chapter, why did England get Florida? This is whenever Spain gets it back for us, and then also France gets this territory again later on. But for right now, the Spanish, they get this territory back because since the Spanish came out and did help us a little bit for it, they basically got Florida back. French, they didn't really get anything from this. Besides, they had the satisfaction of seeing the British lost, which is all that they wanted at this point. They were happy knowing the British have lost and we were on the winning side for once. We have lots of debt, but at least we were on the winning side. So France was okay with this for it. So your book points out, though, that there are several things that the United States also agreed in response to this with the British. One of the major ones was we said that we would not put any legal restrictions on the British creditors who sought to collect debts incurred by the American merchants. So we said, okay, we're going to make sure that if you had a loyalist or a British creditor that loaned in American money, they still have to pay it back. It doesn't just become null and void just because of the War for Independence. They also said they would recommend that the states that had taken land from the loyalists during the war, that it would go back to them. If you were a loyalist during the War for Independence, life was kind of unhealthy. In a lot of cases, your land got taken away. So Congress said, okay, just because we have people that are sympathetic to the British, we're going to say that they should get their land back. So again, okay, the side sided it with the British, but the war's over now. They can have their land back, and we can just go back to being normal with it. So just make a note, though, that Spain also regained Florida. And that's pretty much it for this chapter. I think we've covered everything. I finished 5 minutes early. I talked fast for nothing. Alright, anyone have any questions about this? Alright, so as a side note, I don't know if I'm gonna spend a whole lot of time on the states and capitals because priority, but when is your states and capitals quiz?
Tuesday.
I actually don't know.
Wednesday, because your test is Tuesday, so I'm kicking it back a day in case it was Tuesday. So your test is Tuesday, so make sure you study for your test, but keep in mind that you need to study your states and capitals some, but if you need to cram them Tuesday night, cram them Tuesday night to make sure you are studying for them. Alright,
Don't read this study. What's the homework?
oh, that's right.
Oh, come on.
Really?
Thank you. I would have remembered, I would have remembered.
Really?
She's never
Alright.
forgotten homework.
I've not. I'll just think of reviews in the next couple minutes, but I was sure.
I'm
Alright, you
sure.
ready for this? We're gonna do the concept reviews. These are the possible essays, so be sure to give me more than just like one sentence answers for them, because this is to help you out to see what the essay will be. So on page 59 in the chapter 4, it's 1 and 5. 1 and 5 on page 59. These are the concepts to consider. On page 72, chapter 5 review, concept to consider, number 4. So concept to consider, number 4. And on page 87, chapter 6 review, the concept to consider, number 2. So I'll give the page number and then I'll give the concept to consider again. So page 59, 1 and 5. Page 72, 4. Page 87, 2. Alright, so those are the 4 possible ideas to help you thinking for your essay for it, so it'll help you start to kind of focus your studying for it. Alright, we'll just do the pumpkin for the last couple of minutes. We only have like 2 minutes, there's no point starting anything at that point. Sit up, Jensen! Alright, let's see, what is the year for the official Treaty of Paris that ended the War for Independence? What is the year for it? Alright, go! Chris got it up first.
1783. Are you
1783.
keeping points?
You can keep track of your points. Alright, what was the final battle that basically ended the War for Independence? Go! Okay, that was Jensen's. Yorktown. What is the year for that battle? Battle of Yorktown.
Second one.
Go. Okay, that was easy.
1781.
1781. Let's see. Who were the French troops that came over to help Washington that marched south from New York? You gotta know the general's name. Go to this side. That might help you out. Go.
Rochambeau.
Okay, Rochambeau is how you say that, but that was a good try. So yes,
Thank you.
Rochambeau. Make a note that he marched south to go help out at the Battle of Yorktown. Alright, who is known as the Fighting Quaker? He's not on this side. Go. I think that was Chris.
Where's the start with?
So let's begin with G.
And G.
Color.
Green.
Green. Nathaniel Green. With an extra E on the end.
Green.
Alright, who is known as the Swamp Fox? Go. Here that was.
What's the start with?
His last name is an M.
M.
M. Sounds kind of like a girl's name.
Madison.
Nope. Alright.
Excuse me?
Marion.
Marion, Francis Marion. Let's see, who said I have not yet begun to fight? He owned the Bohon Richard. He was a native of Scotland. He was probably the best known privateer for us. Go. That was Jensen's.
John Paul.
John Paul, that's his middle name.
John Paul. What's his last name, Joey?
J.
Jones.
Good job, John Paul Jones. We skipped Anthony Wayne.
Anthony Wayne.
That's who I forgot to read at the top. Bill's gonna read it.
I won.
Okay, we'll read about Anthony Wayne on Monday. Alright, anyone have 3 points or more? Me. Alright.
Well, we love Stanley.
You may go.